Halito, and welcome to Native Chalk Talk, a podcast by natives for all. Here we're keeping our Native ancestors' stories and history alive, while also sharing with you our Native culture, traditions, and more. I'm Rachel Youngman, a Choctaw originally from Anadarko, Oklahoma. I hope you'll enjoy this journey with me as we learn from our Native American guests. And I hope you'll do me a favor. Feel free to like and share these episodes. I so appreciate it. Yakuki.
You're listening to part 3 of this series.
I am more than a maker.
More than an athlete.
More than a pastor.
Chata Elifinachili.
I am Choctaw proud.
We are the Choctaw Nation, and together we're more.
So you have this life with your siblings and your mom and dad, and then something happened that changed your life. Tell us about the visitor that came to your home.
She was Indian herself. I've forgotten what tribe she is, but I saw her name. I went to Washington, D.C. to that, the new Indian heritage there. What's the name of that? Smithsonian. Native American. And I saw her name there, and I thought, my goodness, I'd look that up. It's Galila Walking Stick. And Sherry looked up her name. And what did you find? What kind of tribe was she? But she worked for the government. And if it was a Caucasian, someone else coming, it would have been different. But yes, she was going to these homes to pick the Indian children up. And I could never understand that. How on earth could you take children and them crying and mothers crying and take them and to a boarding school that was, the government thought that was the best, and they wanted to, annihilate us. I say annihilate because I think that was another form of,
Agreed.
Yeah, I do, another form of annihilation. That they moved, again, people out of their so-called homeland after they got to Oklahoma, and they sent them to Chicago, and they sent them to California and Dallas, and that's another type of annihilation.
Mm-hmm. They call it relocation.
Relocation, that's what they said, to help the Indian.
Opportunities.
Yes, give them new opportunities. And
separating you from your tribe.
Yes. So there again, so many things we didn't know at the time, and our parents didn't know, and even we as young people, we didn't know the history behind it.
Yeah.
If we knew, we would rebel. I believe that's why they didn't even put anything in the Oklahoma history about the Trail of Tears. They say there's one page in Oklahoma history. Now, I don't know if they teach Oklahoma history anymore, but
I don't think it's like that. And when I was in high school, we had Oklahoma history. We had a class. But even then, my teacher, he was, I think he was a little bit Choctaw, and he said, this isn't the whole story.
The land run, I just cannot imagine.
They didn't tell us about that either, so we all participated.
Well, everybody participated in the land run.
When my kids were little, they would.
That was our land.
Yeah.
They used to just love that land run. They all dressed up country style, country clothes, and the Indian, all that.
Right.
But thank God they don't do that anymore.
Right.
Because we know the truth now,
So you were at home one day, and I don't know how much you recall about that day, because I know it was a pretty tragic event, but Mrs. Walking Stick comes up to the house and
asked my mother signed a piece of paper that she didn't know what she was signing. I believe she probably, I don't know exactly the truth. I never talked to my mother about it, but it was like she was going to help us with something. And she didn't realize that, she could speak or read or write any Choctaw, any English at all. So she signed it, and when she did, we're supposed to be real happy about that. Get your clothes, because you're ready to go.
You get to go to a boarding school.
So that's how we left.
And you didn't speak much or any English at that time either, right?
So I spoke some about that time because we had played with our neighbors' children, and we heard them speaking, and we learned English from those neighbor children.
Yeah.
So we could speak some.
So did Miss Walking Stick say to you, pack your bags, you're going to go with us?
Yes, get your things ready. And we didn't have anything to put, we didn't have no suitcase of any kind. We just had to put it in probably a paper sack.
Were you scared? What were you feeling at that time?
Absolutely. We didn't know, and I remember Mary Jane and I got in that car and it seemed like forever to get to Wheelock.
And Mary Jane's your sister, right?
And that's about what, over an hour from here. Hour and a half almost. And it's supposed to be a wonderful thing that they're going to do this and that for us. And I'm sure because we were just children that we were, told what they were going to give us.
Yes.
And, but I remember how sad that was. My goodness, my mother was crying and we were too.
And when you left, was your mom hugging you? Was she like, we'll see you soon?
Yeah, she did. She hugged us and told us that they'd come see us, which, they had no transportation. Back in the day, no one had any transportation. We rode the wagon to town. So back then, the Model T Fords and all that was still, they still had those.
Grandpa eventually got one, didn't
he? He had one.
No, there was some kind of story about your shoes when you were taken away.
Yeah, my mother had to give me 2 kinds of shoes because I had a sore on top of one and never would heal. And she put everything else on it, but it wouldn't heal, so I had to wear 2 different kinds of shoes to go to Wheelock. And I had to wear it like that until that place healed.
Had you heard anything about the boarding schools at the time?
No, we didn't know anything. Evidently, she must have told us they were going to give us something. She's trying to, make light of things, that they're going to do this for us and do this for us. And I remember that, after a while, we just kind of accepted the fact that we were going. And of course, Mary Jane was a big comfort to me because she's my older sister.
Yeah.
But she didn't stay. She married a couple of years after that.
Oh, wow.
So I was the only one that went.
Was it hard for her to leave you? I bet you both
Well,
were so
kind of. And then, but, that was just the way of life back then. And
yeah,
she accepted that too. I could not do that to my children. I would rather die. And
I wonder if she even knew where they took you, because
I don't think she did.
English, her children were just gone.
They're gone. That's right. And I can imagine living like that. Just.
What happened once you arrived to Wheelock?
When we got there, the nurse took over, and she doctored my foot, and I had to see her regularly until it got better. Didn't take too long to get better, but after that, I remember though that many of the children at that boarding school had nightmares. I remember that real well.
Trauma.
I had some myself, sleepwalking, nightmares.
Right.
I imagine it was an emotional trauma.
Exactly.
To be took away like that from your parents.
And not only that, you weren't just taken away, but then you were abused in so many ways.
They were very abusive to us. There was no kind of hugs and no kind of affection whatsoever. I think that's the reason why I went overboard with my children. I just love my kids. I was always affectionate toward them.
Yeah.
And then your daddy was the other way. He didn't show too much affection when we were growing up. He didn't have any kind of affection either. Most of the boarding school children did not have any kind of like praises, good job, none of that. So
sad.
It was just a cold atmosphere, and it just felt like they were just waiting for you to do something wrong so they could abuse you. But the worst abuse was done before I got there, because they closed it a little after I got there. But the worst one was when it first, several years prior to my getting there. And I can't imagine, because some of their punishment, we were told they were put under the stairway. There was a door there, and they always reminded us that that's where they put them in there for some kind of discipline.
Are you serious?
That's true, right there at Wheelock. And I didn't see that at all, but we were told that's what they did.
Do you remember any children passing away while you were there?
No, not really.
That's good.
But they did do some investigation there for it, and I think they found some things. Yeah.
It's crazy to me to think that when you were there, it was still pretty rough. It was bad enough when you were there.
Yes. And then for them to be, whatever they did to them, in before then.
What did Wheelock look like?
It was just a big dormitory. Pushmataha Hall was the biggest one. That's where we all slept. And I was on the porch when I first got there. And it's just like, in prisons, how the beds are all in a row. And the only little possession you have is a little table. That's all we had.
Not exactly warm and inviting.
So that's where we all slept.
And were you comfortable during the different seasons? Was it cold during the winter and hot during the summer?
I can't remember that too much. I don't know that place even had a air, or they had radiators for heat. I remember that.
Yeah.
But I don't remember any kind of cooling. I don't even remember a fan. I don't know. I can't remember that.
And in that Oklahoma heat, if there was no fan, I'm sure that was rough. Did anyone else there other than the kids speak Choctaw? Did the teachers?
No, none of the teachers could speak. Yeah. No.
Were all the kids that were brought there all Choctaw?
Most of them were. Most of them were Choctaws. Choctaw Chickasaws.
What did your day-to-day look like there?
It was just a routine. We had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning when the bell rung. They had a bell there, and they redid that bell not too long, and it's there on the campus. But when that rung, we had to get up at 6 o'clock and get ready, and we had to make our beds, and that bed had to be perfect. It was like Army style, that we had to make all the corners straight, and oh my goodness. And if it wasn't, she checked every room every day. So if it was, that's a demerit. So you had to do it.
It's like military.
And it had to be perfect. It had to be perfect. And that's a hard thing on a child, because I carried that into my family when I married. Everything had to be perfect, didn't it?
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that in itself is abuse, because a child just can't do things perfect. You find out later that's not right. There's something wrong with that. But in the meantime, that's the way we live. When my children were little, they couldn't leave a toy anywhere. It had to be put up.
So did you have? I assume you had chores, school, and
every
chores,
day.
or...
Every day, everybody had a chore to do every day. And then they'd change it around and give you another chore. And you had to do that, and you had to do that perfect too.
Oh, of course.
See, so we lived in fear.
Yeah.
I never did even think about that, but we did. And there just wasn't much laughter there at all, because we were like, we had to do it. We were afraid of getting in trouble daily. If you did, that's kind of like a prison situation, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's a child. Which
As
is
a
even
child,
worse.
oh my, it's even
and you
worse.
hadn't done anything wrong. You're being punished for what?
Yeah,
for being yourself.
That right there, and it didn't even dawn on you that was going on, because you're a child.
Right.
You're just a child.
I know most boarding schools didn't allow kids to speak their language. I assume that was the same. No language, no culture.
No culture, no singing, no speaking.
And you had to learn English.
Yes.
Did you have English classes, I assume?
Well, no, just regular.
You just had to figure it out.
You had to figure out all of it, yes. And even then, I didn't realize that I didn't know I didn't know all of English. I probably didn't.
Yeah.
I could speak to where I could get away with it, just speak.
Right.
But I remember that well.
We'll be back after this quick break. big news, y'all. One of my favorite Choctaw authors, Sarah Elizabeth Sawyer, has a writing course called Fiction Writing American Indians. Now, this course will show you how to discover the insight you need to write quality, authentic stories. You'll also learn practical approaches to researching Native cultures and get answers to hard questions. I'll be taking the same course, and I invite you to take it with me. Just go to americanindians.fictioncourses.com. But don't forget to use the code CHOCTALK, that's CHOCTALK, when you go to checkout to get $30 off. Yes, let's do this.
I know we're getting into a difficult topic when it comes to some of the atrocities of the boarding schools, so I appreciate your sharing. The Choctaw spirit is strong and is about moving forward and looking to good things ahead. But many people still don't know about the boarding schools and what our children went through. And I think it's an important part of history that needs to be told. On a lighter note, there's a story out there about you and the fire escape. Tell us about that.
Well, I thought it'd be fun to use our pillow. We had one pillow, everybody had one pillow. So I told him, I said, well, what could make us go down that fire escape is if this pillow would sit on it, and it would get us down quicker. So we did that all right. A few of us, I got 4 or 5 of those girls doing it. What we didn't know was that we called them matrons, we didn't call them house mothers.
Okay.
And we called them matrons. And did you know the Jones Academy, they still call theirs matrons too.
Oh, really?
I spoke down there not too long ago and they said, we still call them matrons. Anyway, she was standing down there at that bottom of that fire escape. We didn't know it, Miss Hunt. So she was standing there and oh my gosh, she used to paddle. And she paddled every one of us for doing that. I think that every one of them that did that's all passed away now. Mary Edna passed away not too long, but I think she's the last one. Yeah.
I'm glad you kept in touch with some of them over the years.
There's a picture at the cultural right there by Wheelock miniature. The Pushmataha Hall is there, and then right to the side is that picture. They never did send me one, did they? It's like they said they would. But it's a picture of some of my schoolmates. It's a beautiful picture. I wanted one so bad. I wanted a big one.
You mentioned that you didn't get to go home, I believe. Did you ever go home again? Did you see your family ever
Yes,
again?
we did. Sometimes we did. I can't tell you how many, but they visited the homes, and if they felt like that it was not if they decided that we couldn't go, we didn't go. Sometimes at Christmas time, if she said no, we didn't go. And at summertime, if the principal said no, we didn't go either. And we'd be the only ones sitting there, just not nobody come get us. They kept us there at the school.
Did you have anything to do during that
Well,
time?
they tried to take us to the lake and things like that. But,
Was there recess at Wheelock?
I can't remember that we had recess. I cannot remember that. And I've got good memory. In front of Pushmataha Hall is a huge lawn, but I can't remember them having us. There was a couple of bicycles there because I have a picture of us, Norma and I had a bicycle to play with. But there was not any playground equipment. No, I can't remember dolls. Now, our beds didn't have nothing on it, so evidently none of us had stuffed toys. That's why we did what we did. We cut out paper dolls.
You made paper dolls?
There were 2 little small cabins, log cabins that were in the back. And we would just play behind them. I don't know what in the world we played with, except the little dolls, the little paper dolls. And I stole them.
See, that's what it is.
Miss Bear was she's the sewing room lady. And I spotted some scraps and some needles and thread and stuff in there. And I thought, no, we can sure play with that all right. And that's what we took behind that little log cabins. And we pretended to sew, and I took it all right.
And as you got older, I guess they would supply you with new clothes.
Well, I had a check that came every month because my dad, when he passed away, he left us a little inheritance. So I did get, and some of the children didn't have any at all, but I did. I got that little check every month. And that even happened when I went to Schlocko. I got a little check every month.
So were you
So
able
that
to
helped.
go into town and
They would let
buy
us
clothes
take
or
us, you know, so
something?
we could spend it.
But that was one of the few
One
outings
of
you
the
enjoyed.
exactly. They
Yeah.
had
Wow. What was the food like there?
food was not too good at all. It's just what they provided, just basic stuff, and that's what we ate every day. And I can't remember exactly what, but I know it was just the basic potatoes, and
Yeah.
I can't remember any kind of meat or anything too much. So they must have been very, you know, because I didn't even know what roast was. And I was in high school at Shalako. When I came home, my mother had fixed roast, and I said I didn't want that because I didn't know what it was.
At some point, you graduated from Wheelock, and what grade was that?
Eighth grade.
Eighth grade.
It just went from first to the eighth grade.
Yeah.
Did your family come to see you graduate?
No, there was nobody there.
Do you think your parents knew you were graduating?
I don't know if they did. We used to send little letters out, you know, if we can, but
Yeah.
you know, we made all our graduation dresses, and all of us had the same dress. We made it ourselves. Little ribbon for a belt, and we took pictures of it. I have a picture of it somewhere. I think I went on a bus home. Because there was nothing else that you could do but go home then. You couldn't help you anymore.
According to the Oklahoma Historical Society and the Encyclopedia of Oklahoma History and Culture, a short distance north of U.S. Highway 70, northeast of Millerton in McCurtain County, is Wheelock Academy, which functioned from 1884 to 1955 as a boarding school for American Indian girls, mostly Choctaw. The genesis of the institution dates to 1832 when a Christian missionary couple, Alfred and Harriet Wright, resumed the work that they had earlier conducted among the Choctaw in Mississippi. The Choctaw removal from that state to present southeastern Oklahoma began in 1831. Sponsored by the American Board of Commissioners to Foreign Missions ABCFM Congregationalists, based in Boston, Massachusetts, the Wrights arrived in the West late in 1832 and soon established a mission station, school, and church. Wright chose the name Wheelock for the station, memorializing his friend and mentor, Eliezer Wheelock, first president of Dartmouth College. At this site, the Wrights resumed their Christian ministry, educational efforts, and medical care for the hundreds of Choctaw families who had settled in the vicinity. Harriet Wright took the lead as teacher, while her husband served as minister and self-taught physician to the suffering Indians. He also resumed his efforts to master the Choctaw language and to provide both secular and religious materials in the tongue of his followers. A dormitory was built in 1839, and the functioning school was adopted as part of the Choctaw National School System in 1842 as the Wheelock Female Seminary. The seminary continued as a mission school, partially funded by the Choctaw Nation, until all the schools were closed in 1861 at the outset of the Civil War. Reverend Wright had died in 1853 after years of suffering from a heart ailment. Ill health forced his widow to leave the mission a year later. In the early 1880s, Choctaw National leaders decided to rebuild the school on a new site a few hundred yards northeast of the old mission station, school, and church. The present Wheelock Academy building was constructed, and a Choctaw orphanage was opened there in September 1884. Restoration of the stone church soon followed. As the demand increased for educational service and care of more orphans and other children, the Wheelock complex expanded to accommodate the need. Begun with 5 buildings in 1884, including the still extant main dormitory, Poshmataha Hall, there were 18 buildings when the institution closed in 1955. The U.S. government had assumed jurisdiction over the school in 1910 and full control as well as funding in 1932. After 1955, the facility remained virtually abandoned until later returned to ownership of the Choctaw Nation. After 1955, the facility remained virtually abandoned until later returned to ownership of the Choctaw Nation. Neglected maintenance caused the wooden buildings to deteriorate rapidly, and fires and the ravages of nature reduced the complex to 7 significant buildings in various conditions. In the 1970s and 1980s, the Choctaw Nation made sporadic efforts to restore some of the buildings. In 1998, the nation's officials initiated another further effort to restore the surviving buildings for reuse. State and national historic preservation agencies declared the Academy one of the state's and nation's most endangered historic places. Wheelock Academy received National Historic Landmark designation in 1965 and in 1966 was listed in the National Register of Historic Places.
Stay tuned for part 4 of this series.
Thanks for listening to Native Chalk Talk. Be sure to join our community on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and check us out at nativechalktalk.com. Stay tuned for the next episode. You're going to love it. Yakoki. Thank you, my friends.